We're talking about somebody else. I mean, I don't know her, but she sounds pretty interesting. When I first came here, I knew nothing about, I'd certainly living in Fayetteville for 11 years. I knew about the buffalo. I'd maybe been down here once to the river, but I knew nothing about Rush. And it didn't take long to get obsessed with Rush. And I decided right away that was going to be my project. And I got involved in historical fiction a little bit when I wrote Riders on the Orphan Train. And I like creating fictional characters that I drop into real settings and places. So that's what I've done. And this is called A Ghost Returns to Rush. And it's some ghost coming back to Rush after having been gone for about 120 years. And she was 14 at the time of this story taking place. So they call this place a ghost town now, so I must have come in through the window. The dead don't disappear. Sooner or later, one way or another, we find our way home. You can see that all the doors are gone, the window glass too. You can't hardly call them houses now. But when I look across the road to where the main part of town used to be, I can see that the water in Rush Creek still drops down underground, and when you think it's gone forever, it comes up further downstream. Some things don't change. By the time I left in 18, the hills were as bare as prairies after they took all the trees for the mines. From our house, you could easily see the Morning Star, its stacks smoking away, and the chat piles that kids used to slide down on pieces of tin. On a moonlight night, it looked like the moon itself was shining down on a reflection of its own self. But now everything is green again, full of trees and tangles, so what's left is a lot harder to see. The stone smelter is right where I remember it. My daddy called it McCabe's cairn. It always did look like an altar to me. And when Mr. Setzer's girls found what they called flickers on the ground while they were chasing their cows up Rush Mountain, Mr. McCabe swore it had to be silver. There were old Indian legends about lost mines in the hills. So he brought men in from Joplin to build the thick stone smelter, put sand in the bottom to catch the melt, and stoked the chimney with ore he dug out of a bluff, and a few people stood around to watch. We had just come from Tennessee, my mom and dad and I. I was 7 at the time, and my mama held my hand. But when the fire was lit, nothing precious dripped down at all. Nothing dripped down at all. Instead, a rainbow shot out of the top. That turned out to be the giveaway clue. It was zinc, and it meant nobody was going to get rich in Rush like they thought, at least not anytime soon. But to me, it was a mystery, and no fire ever looked so beautiful again. I can't believe my mother's daffodils are still here. The house used to be painted as yellow as her favorite flowers, and now look at it. It's just gray as a bachelor's long johns, a skeleton of a home so rickety you'd bust through the floor if you set 1 foot inside. Lucky someone didn't set a match to it. Even the newspaper my mama and I tacked to the walls got torn down. The TV took her when I was 10, and I picked some of those daffodils and jonquils to put in her hands, wrapped her fingers around the stems so she could hold them all the way to the hereafter. I was the one to sit up with her after she was washed and made ready. I asked the people to leave me alone with her. I didn't want anyone to see me cry. Daddy was going to Batesville to his own daddy's funeral, and he didn't even know Mama passed. So instead of reading from the Bible, I read from the Mountain Echo and the Kansas City Star. We tacked these newspapers to the wall. I read out loud to her all night long, and it was a comfort. I remember there was an advertisement for a looking glass, something I wished I had the money to buy for her. And then there was an article about somebody named Nellie Bly, who just traveled by herself around the entire world in 72 days so she could write a newspaper story about it. Before I read Nellie's story, Missouri seemed like a kingdom far, far away. In the morning, Mama was carried out in a pine coffin. 2 men lifted her onto a wagon, and I walked behind with a few other people all the way down to the Buffalo. She was put on a flatboat and ferried down to Cabin Creek to be buried. I refused to go. I wanted to remember my mother floating downriver with the blue sky above her, not covered up in the dark and lonely ground. I may as well have been an orphan after that. My daddy was a riverman, away most of the time moving timber. I had to grow up fast, take care of a house and a garden and the chickens, and a tired man with no time for a daughter. I had too many questions, so reading was how I answered my own, and a way I could travel too. Like Nellie Bly, and learn at least a little about the world outside our valley. My teacher lent me lots of books and magazines, and I couldn't get enough. But all that's left of my newspapers now is these thumbtacks that held them to the walls, like rivets, here and there a tiny scrap, impossible to tell what paper it came from, who or what it might have been about. But all that aside, what I have really come back to tell about is one particular day in April 1893 when I saw something like a miracle. That's why I came back. Today is the 129th anniversary when Russia's time as a best-kept secret was about to be spilled. I was here, flesh and blood, all of 14 years old on the day everything changed, though we wouldn't know how much at the time. It was a day I got to be a girl again. I can still hear it coming down Rush Mountain from the Morning Star. It sounds like thunder, except the sun is out. I've been waiting since dawn, right here in this doorway. It takes a while to come into view because there's 16 oxen in front, pulling hard, and by the time the team comes past the livery and about to make the turn, people stop what they're doing to look. The chunk of zinc, as big as an elephant, rolls on by, chained to a log on a timber wagon. I knew it was coming, all 6 tons of it, that the miners got it all out in one piece. But I'm really stupefied by the very wonder of it. It looks like something a pharaoh ordered especially for his tomb, or like a leftover rock from the beginning of time put by to start a whole other world with. Us kids run up behind the wagon, but have to slow to a walk. The rock is so heavy that even that many oxen have a hard time pulling it. At least they're going downhill. The whole town of Rush, which wasn't more than 100 people, takes time off to walk along with its treasure, to see it off on its long journey to the World's Fair. Even the Morning Star mine shuts down early. People come out of their houses and even their outhouses, and the post office and the mercantile too, and soon there are streams of folks, like all the creeks that become part of the Buffalo. We're a parade before we know it. The brawly boy walks up on his stilts and easily gets to the front to lead the parade. A couple of dogs and the blacksmith riding a jenny trot behind. Asa Tyndall saws away on his fiddle while he walks along, and you can hardly hear the tune above the grinding and groaning of the wagon. And there's that Sully girl up there with the miners showing out, her hair loose, no hat, like she's my age instead of 17. It would be just like her to trip and fall to see who comes to help her first, a kind of a husband test, something I have absolutely no interest in. Granny Timbo, who won't walk if she can help it, gets picked up off her porch, chair and all, carried by her neighbors like a queen down Rush Creek Road, holding on to her Bible, which she cannot read but pretends to, and a black umbrella in the other hand. It isn't even raining. She's heard enough scripture in the brush arbor to give her own sermon, but today she's not saying anything. She must be stupefied too. There's a stranger with a camera. He probably already took a picture of the mine when the men were loading the wagon. And as soon as Sarah Sully catches sight of him, she starts primping up her hair, but he's here to take a likeness to the rock, not her. He's got the long joint sticks he sets his box camera on, and he carries it like a musket over his shoulder. Maybe he'll take more pictures down by the river. Maybe he's just going along for the fun. And here comes Mr. Chase in a bowler hat, proud as a banker. It's his mine, it's his rock, and soon the world will know there's zinc here. and lots of it. Miss Henderson, my teacher, rides a new bicycle. I didn't know she could. She waves to me, and her little dog Joey is sitting up in a basket tied to the handlebars, and Joey barks the whole way. I can't see the oxen now, but I hear all 64 hooves clatter on the rocks. They must have brought some of them down from Yellville or Blue John. The livery here wouldn't hold half of them. Probably good and thirsty already, but they'll have to wait till we get to the river, because if they stop, they might not get going again. Granny Timbo remembers a psalm, or part of one, from the Bible card she gives out in Sunday school. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, she begins, and stops, as if even she knows it doesn't suit the occasion. This is a spectacle. This isn't a funeral. Might be worth at least $50, Tommy Shepard says. He's one of the water boys at the mine. He looks at me as if I might try to tell him different. Sally, who somehow heard him, turns around. Way more than 50, she says. I tell her it's not for sale at any price. It's for the fair, I say. The Columbian Exposition, maybe the Field Museum after. I'd already learned that from Miss Henderson only the day before. Well, then I might get to visit someday, Tommy says. Maybe I'll get in free because I helped with it. When we took it out, you better believe it left a hole. You are just the water boy, Sally says, as if she's got men to talk to now. You don't know anything. Then she turns to me, and neither do you. You're just the teacher's pet. I ignore her, or at least try to. This is no day to carry hurt feelings around. By the time we get past the boiling springs where we get our sweet water, the pigs in Ricker's pen actually lift their heads from the trough as if something in them knows this is worth a look. Somebody should open the gate so they could join in. Even the chickens and a horse or two, like a circus coming to town. I once saw in Harrison waving as they went. But there's no big top at the end of this road. And soon enough I can see the blue of the buffalo through the canebrake. And I start to miss the rock already, and it's still right in front of me. By the time we get to the landing, there's a big raft offshore, 6 men poling it. The river's high enough after the rain we got, so they should be able to get through the shoals where the clabber comes in. What a day for Daddy to have to go to Buffalo City on the timber run. He's never here when important things are going on, but maybe he'll see it sailing by. It isn't until I see the awe in the faces of the rivermen that I begin to understand the reverence that people have for this rock. These men may have heard about jumbo, what they call it, but to see it is to appreciate that it's a whole lot more than just a mineral. I reach out to touch the black, shiny zinc. It's rough, but it's real. No dream or tall tale. It could be the very heart of Rush Mountain. The photographer sets up his camera, and after waving his arms around for all of us to come closer together, he puts his head under a cape. It's hard to hold still for so long, to not move and ruin the picture. We might end up in some newspaper. We could turn right into history. But I don't want to miss anything. I need to watch the miners struggle to roll the stone onto the boat. I worry it's too heavy for the raft, that they'll scrape through the shoals and tip over like so many do, and Jumbo will be lost in the Buffalo forever, rolling along the bottom all the way to the White, and then the Mississippi, and then all the way to the Gulf where it meet with some ocean. And if anyone happens to see it, they won't even know what it means. By the time I'm done thinking all this, Jumbo is on the raft, ready for its long journey. First to Buffalo City. From there it'll be towed behind a steamboat that will take it to Batesville to meet the train. Different men will be amazed before they have to do the hard work of getting it onto the train car. Then to a completely different state where St. Louis is, and then Chicago to wind up in the mining pavilion at the fair. Many different people will know just how heavy it is. 12,750 pounds of high-grade zinc carbonate, Mr. Chase said. People from the rest of the world will see it at the fair, and there might be a map showing where it came from. I can't help it, I feel prideful. that it was once inside our mountain. And I want to tell the people of Chicago to show proper reverence. We, the people of Rush, are the ones going to all the trouble to get it to you, not to turn into money, but to look upon, to see for yourselves. There is still a lot of mystery in the world, and part of it comes from a place called Arkansas. Some things can't be explained. They just have to be believed in. Miss Henderson walks her bicycle up to me, and Joey finally stops barking. Maybe she can tell I'm worked up, at least on the inside. Willa, do you remember your memory verse from Ulysses, that poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson? I always liked memorizing verses from poems instead of the Bible. She picked them out for me. I only remember the end, I say, and so I say it out loud like I'm standing in front of the class, but really I'm saying it to everybody. We are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Amen from Granny Timbo. Well done, Miss Henderson says. She rests her hand on my shoulder, gentle. Sally watches, silent, and turns away. The boatmen are pushing off from shore. Jumbo is safe and the raft rides low in the water. But now the name Jumbo just seems silly for something so grand. So I'm going to call it Ulysses, like the hero in the poem. It's a sad thing they have to chain it like some wild beast that might try to get away. And it's a shame we have to send it to strangers somewhere far from this mining camp to put our own selves on the map. Some things get taken out of the ground. Some get put back in. I just wish my mama was here to see it with me. Soon enough, Rush will be big news in all the papers, and people will come here to get rich and start to believe that the railroad would get built all the way to here. So many people, thousands, by wagon, by mule, by foot. They'll change everything. They'll cut down all the trees. They'll fill up this little valley with oil engine noise. They'll build pool halls and barber shops and hotels and not enough houses, so miners will have to live in tents and wait all night for their turn at a haircut. The flies will drive us all crazy. These newcomers will end up ruining the drinking water, so we'll have to go to a spring clear across the river. They'll turn this place into a rag town, wagons and whiskey and dust all day, all night. They won't know about what really happened unless they take the time to read. No idea at all that it was our nugget that made them leave their farms and brought them all here to prosper. But they didn't stay. In less than 30 years, prices dropped and it wasn't worth the expense to haul it out. The railroad stopped getting built 6 miles from here. The raft now reaches the deeper part of the river and the boatmen slowly turn it around to head downstream. Nobody waves at the end. Asa Tyndall starts to play his fiddle, but he stops. Granny is quiet, and even Sally has nothing to say. We all stand watching the raft, even after it's gone. It's like God leaving, just his back, walking away. You have one shot in your whole life to bear witness to something like this, and you don't dare blink. It's not going to last long. You know it's the closest thing you'll ever get to seeing something holy. There wasn't a picture of us in the paper. You'd never know we existed, that any of it happened. So I'm here to tell the news to anybody who'll listen. It took a lot to move a mountain, or part of one. It shouldn't be easy to forget how it left a huge hole, that it took 16 oxen to move it. Ulysses was our piece of our own ground, the best we had to offer. How in the world did we ever give it away? How did we ever turn around that day at the river and walk back up the road behind an empty wagon to our mines and barns and kitchens to keep on living our lives as best we could? We heard it won a gold medal in Chicago. Lots of people saw it. but most came to see the new electricity light up the night, to ride on the very first Ferris wheel in the whole wide world. And what can we do but remember and keep asking, whatever happened to our rock? It just vanished down the river and took part of us along with it. We never did see it again.